Welcome to Self-Care for Extremely Busy Women. It's a hectic life out there, so come on in, settle down, and relax. Here's your host, the author of The Extremely Busy Women's Guide to Self-Care, Suzanne Falter.
Hey friend, welcome in. It's time to relax and revel in a little bit of self-care. This is your host, Suzanne Falter, and today this show is coming to you courtesy of my new favorite self-care secret weapon, Magic Mind. More about that a little later. I'm going to start with an essay I wrote called, What If I Don't Know What I Want? It is said that the greatest guide to living a prosperous, happy life of love is to listen to your heart. Just follow its guidance and you'll be all set. At least that is the conventional wisdom that drives us to eschew the ordinary life and set off on the road less traveled, right? And yet, I just gotta say, there seems to be a design flaw. I don't know about you, but historically, I've had one hell of a time hearing my heart. I know its wisdom is back there somewhere, but it's lodged behind the ranting of my incessantly worried mind and a million to-dos and a cacophony of midlife emotions. It's also buried behind the subtle overlayer of apps, texts, emails, phone calls, appointments, traffic jams, calories, doctor appointments, instant messages, chats, whether or not to eat chocolate, and the frenetic microcosm that is social media. Bottom line, I can't freaking hear my heart, and yet I know if I just stop and listen, like really stop and listen, well, then I can hear it. The fact is, I don't want to listen. My heart may tell me that my constant doing must end, that I must be willing to let go and hang out with the mystery of life for a while. If I really want to feel my feelings, I gotta stop being so busy all the time. My heart may say that far more urgent than anything on my must-do list is my own, our own, continued healing. Or perhaps my heart's just going to be in plain old pain. There are things in life that are painful, right? That we simply can't avoid, try as we may. When I really slow down and listen at such times, I am moved to tears. Many of us are all in a state of subtle emergency, and we proceed as if this is the human condition. Yet, it's not. Underneath all the furor of modern life, we are calmly rational. Furthermore, we know exactly what to do at any given moment. In fact, our nervous system is always ready to chime in with its intuitive hit to set us straight. But really, we just can't bear to hear it. Then change might be required, change for which we feel ill-prepared, change that might lead us to failure. At least that's what our ego thinks in its protective, if misguided way. So it is that we hang out there in vagueness, longing for something but unable to say what exactly. So I have been quietly learning that I have no choice. If I want to be happy, I have to follow the direction of my heart, whether I like it or not. My heart, in truth, it's the only sane driver on board. So I simply must slow down. Perhaps I pull out a journal, or maybe I don't. Either way, I have to listen. I write, I cry, I think, and I feel. Because when I slow down long enough to listen, life calms down. Then my faith returns, and I remember I'm not alone. Instantly, I feel stronger, wiser, and somehow I know what to do. And that crystal bit of insight is worth any pain I may have felt, even for a nanosecond, as I listen to my heart. Bear in mind this, my friend. Your heart will not ever try to set you off course, nor will your heart ever try to hurt another being. Instead, it only wants to lovingly steer you onward to become your best every day. That's all that happens when you make enough time and create enough peace to finally listen. What's your heart trying to tell you today that you may be avoiding? You know how sometimes you have to do things around your house that are just plain annoying? For me, that is replacing the very large, awkward fixtures in my kitchen when I have to replace a light bulb. Oh my God, I hate it. But, I told you I was going to share a new secret weapon in the quest for self-care, and that is a little herbal shot called Magic Mind. You know, they call it the first productivity drink, but I'm going to tell you something. I took that little shot, I got up on the ladder, I took that light fixture down, I replaced the bulb. There was no whining. It was actually fun, and I felt so energized. Then I went outside, I saw a hole in my fence, I got out wood and a saw, and I actually cut a piece to size, and I repaired the hole. I don't use tools, ladies. This was like a miracle. This stuff it is a very, very amazing productivity tool, and I'm not kidding you. This is for real, friends. It's not some big caffeine shot. It's not like Jolt where you're going to be jittered out. No, it's got this great little blend of nootropics and matcha and a bunch of stuff in it that just really makes you get into a creative, happy, calm, relaxed, productive flow state. Pretty great, right? What better way to tackle your self-care and get things done if you've got to get things done? It's going to make it easy for you. Go to magicmind.co/Suzanne, my name, Suzanne, and there's a code that'll give you 20% off so you can try Magic Mind. The code is my name, Suzanne, Suzanne 20, Suzanne 20. Check it out. It's on the show notes page for this episode. Magic Mind. In this episode, I want to talk about the self-care of spirituality. Now, just before you get your knickers in a twist, if you are, this is not about religion. I don't happen to have a religious practice per se myself, though many do, and I honor that. This is about trust, specifically about learning to trust the path you're on, learning to trust the universe. Getting a sense of a larger something can seriously help you with your anxiety, your worry, your stress. And that is why spirituality for me has become a big piece of my self-care. And hopefully, it may inspire something for you. Just to begin with my own story, I was a spiritual marketing consultant. Yes, I really was. Back in the bad old internet marketing days, I had something called the Spiritual Marketing Quest. And I really thought I was super spiritual. You know, I did yoga and I meditated, but I had a very surface understanding of real spirituality, which got dramatically shifted around the death of my daughter, Teal. That last week, she was in the hospital after suffering a medically unexplainable cardiac arrest. She was in a coma for 6 days before she was taken off of life support. And during that 6-day period, I began to sense the joy, the release, the surrender at the edge of life. It was a profound spiritual awakening for me, and it had everything to do with having my entire life collapse. I no longer had a relationship suddenly, or even a home, or a career. My business closed. Everything went away, and my daughter died, all in a very short period of time. And I had to surrender to the idea that there was a reason, that this was happening for a reason. In fact, I had a great knowing come upon me as I walked into her hospital room that very first night, and she was so covered with thermal wrappings and wires and monitors. Her entire skull was wrapped in bandages, and it was just like I could barely see any of my daughter in this figure lying on the bed. And as I stood there, I had this deep sense that this was meant to be. that this was her life path, that she would die. And as a result, the healing work that she had felt called to do in this life would be given to me. Crazy thing. I wasn't planning to do this healing work at all. I was planning to open up another branch of my spiritual marketing business. But you know what? Sometimes you've got to go with what you're given. So by surrendering that particular night and allowing myself to just travel on this path and see where it would lead me and trust that there was some larger reason that this was leading me ultimately through the fire, through the pain, towards something more positive, became a really important part of my spiritual path. So what is this mysterious thing we call a spiritual connection, and what the heck does it even have to do with self-care, right? Well, a lot of us are anxious. 78% of all Americans have experienced anxiety in the last several years. Thank you, pandemic. But it was bad before then. And why? Because we live in a cranked up, overstimulated, overproduced, overproductive life. And our culture does not support slowing down, quieting down, and going within. Yet that is the very essence of spirituality, and it's the essence of self-care, because self-care is about honoring you and the deep layers that make up you and all of your life experience and all of the beautiful things you bring to this life, your talents, your impulses, your instincts, your gifts. These are things that are enhanced with self-care, just as they can be with spirituality. So when you think about your spiritual connection as sort of your guidepost, and like I said, it could be your intuition, it could be a real sense that, God or your spirit or whoever is talking to you, or it could just be an inner knowing. Whatever it is, it's the little voice that whispers to you sometimes, maybe even in the middle of the night or when you're particularly quiet, and it'll nudge you if you listen in certain directions. This, I have come to understand through my own lived experience, is the healing path, and it will always direct us back to deeper and better self-care. Hey, take note, my friends, if you are somebody who can't always figure out what is the self-care you need, what is this thing that I'm supposed to be doing called self-care, this show's for you in particular. Because by surrendering to that little inner voice, that little inner knowing, or that big inner knowing, you begin to give yourself the things that you need. I also have the belief that this path we're on is an evolutionary path, that we are being shaped and guided to become better people. That first night in Teal's hospital room, when I looked at her stretched out on the bed, I knew she would die, but I also knew that my life was broken, that if I was going to take on this mantle and do this healing work, I was going to have to become a much better person. Somebody who was not obsessed with making money, somebody who had actual compassion for other people, somebody who was not all about looking good, somebody who had her values in hand. And I have since come to understand that a great deal of my spirituality has been about rebuilding my value system and embracing what's important. And at the top of that list is love and understanding. Loving myself, loving other people, giving the guy who cuts me off on the 580 freeway a break, giving myself a break when things don't go well. Giving the world a break because it's messy out there and there are crazy things going on. Oh, sure, I can rant and carry on like the rest of them, but you know what? I don't really want to. It's a low vibe experience. As I go deeper and deeper into the world of self-care and follow this spiritual path to be your guide in self-care, I begin to understand more and more this is about vibration. And a deep spiritual connection will always lead you back to a higher vibe. That's why it feels so good to do yoga or Tai Chi or a meditation practice or walk in nature. These are activities that actually the vibration of those activities is gentle and soothing to our souls. It's not the same as, say, Times Square at rush hour. It's not the same as sitting in traffic with the radio blaring. It's not the same thing as being in a very crowded bar, trying to have fun. It's about honoring that vibe that we want to resonate at, that is a higher vibe. Once you allow yourself to begin to recognize that your life and my life and all our lives are about evolving and moving through our difficulties and learning from our difficulties, well, my friend, we become more accepting. And that's part of that spiritual journey. Once you can see that everything has a reason that happens to you, it becomes easier to relax. And then you're just naturally not so anxious or hard on yourself or anyone else. Believe me, nothing is worse than having your child die. But what I learned was that could be an opportunity, a catalyst for actually becoming a better person who might fulfill some of Teal's desire, my daughter's desire, to help other people. That maybe that could become my path. And so I've been able to make sense of that death and move forward with my spirituality. Now, I want to share some little truths that I discovered about this spiritual path as I trudged on it during the years since she passed away in 2012. And I would have to say the first one is that there's more to the world than meets the eye. It is kind of crazy, but have you ever noticed that once you really go down a path, you say, okay, I just want to do this thing, not because I think it's going to make me money or not because somebody told me to, but because I really want this. For me, one of those things was going to Paris for 2 months in the middle of my grief. And, that, I had very rusty French, just let's put it that way. I didn't have any friends. I knew nobody in Paris. I had a longing to go, though, and I followed that instinct. And the craziest thing is, immediately, the minute I committed to it and I bought that plane ticket, the cards just laid out on the table. A friend of a friend offered me a really nice apartment to stay in for 35 euros a night, very cheap. That woman turned out to be very challenging, but I learned so much about compassion from living with her. In Paris, I healed a particular itch I had. I needed to be in some of these places, and I couldn't even tell you why, but I needed it. And when I came back from that trip, I was really changed, and I immediately moved to a different, better living situation. I had been renting a room in a house, and I ended up moving in with a friend for free in a different town, which was a higher vibe experience all around. I really resonated with my friend Linda, who I moved in with. I took care of her dear dog Tuki, who I also really resonated with. And that became the place to do the final stages of healing my grief. And it was absolutely guided. The whole thing was just like boom, boom, boom. I just followed my instincts. So, number 2 lesson would be you're not alone. I felt so alone during that period. I felt so like, okay, I had my friend Linda, who I, trusted and leaned on, and she was very supportive, but, she was a busy woman and I wasn't trying to intrude. So a lot of the time I was really alone. But through the whole thing, I did reach out. I did go to support groups. I did get grief support. I got recovery support. I got all kinds of support. And I realized there were all these people out there who needed to know that they could be supported by me just as they were supporting me. So it was like I stepped into a world where I was no longer alone and other people weren't either. And that's true for you because you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, whatever question is on your mind, there's always someone you can ask, even if you don't know them yet. If you really feel alone, get yourself over to Meetup or recovery groups or support groups. Just Google it. You'll find your tribe. Number 3, I would say, has to be that the universe has your back. The universe does not have bad intentions for you. That is not the spiritual path. The spiritual path is not, we are going to destroy you, take you down, and wreck your life. No way, no how. The spiritual path is, you are being guided to become a stronger, better, resilient person if you will follow the prompts. And sometimes bad things happen. The death of a child, the death of someone you love, the end of a marriage. But sometimes those things are not exactly what they appear to be. The end of a marriage can be very liberating. I ended my marriage and ended up coming out as lesbian after, at age 52, after many, many, many years of pretending I wasn't. Was that healing? Well, you can bet it was. Everything is not black or white. There are shades of gray, and all through it, the universe is guiding you, nudging you, prompting you, saying, come on, come along, you can do this. We've got you. Just listen. Your job is simply to follow the instructions and keep your eyes open and your ears open. Number 4, everything happens for a reason. And when things don't go your way, I can guarantee you there is some kind of really good reason. And if you haven't got any idea what that reason is, that's okay. Not knowing is part of the process. We are here to evolve and grow and learn lessons. That's why these difficult people show up in our path. Not because it's supposed to be easy, because we don't really pay attention when everything's too easy. Have you noticed? We aren't really challenged. We aren't really called forth. We aren't really forced to be humble and tell the truth about our part in things, which is often a very great part of this spiritual path. When we allow ourselves to really tell the truth about our lives, that's when we start to evolve and grow, and we start to understand the greater truth. You know, sometimes we have goals, we have dreams. It's really hard to get them. Sometimes people toil all their lives hoping to be a great star or have a successful business, and it never happens. Yet what happens along the way, as John Lennon put it, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And it's that essence, that what happens along the way, that is part of this great spiritual path. Number 5 for me is, we sign up for this life ahead of time. Now, this may be a bit esoteric and, just take what you like and leave the rest here, right? But I believe that we have multiple lifetimes, and then between lifetimes, we make plans, we make agreements, we make contracts. We figure out who's going to help us get through certain lessons we have to learn. Did I make a contract with my daughter that she would die and I would carry on her healing work and be so transformed by it? I think I did, because it all felt right. Even though the most heinous thing in the world was happening, my daughter was dying, I understood that behind all that panic and shock and grief and upset and crisis was an underlayer of solid, foundational yes. That solid foundational yes helped me accept her death much more quickly. And not in a spiritual bypass kind of way, because believe me, accepting it didn't mean I didn't grieve. It meant I grieved a lot. But behind that grief, I could see that she was meant to be 22 years old and no older. That was going to be her life. That this was the fulfillment of her particular lifetime. And, it's an esoteric thing, this concept, but it has given me a great deal of comfort, because when I realized that she and I probably made these plans, well, then, that's a place of acceptance. And when we accept life and we go with it and we stop resisting it, oh my God, it gets so much easier. That's where the anxiety and the stress and the worry seem to disappear. Now, I'm not saying you should accept someone's abusive behavior. No, but think of them as your teacher teaching you how to set boundaries, how to say no, perhaps even how to have the courage to leave the relationship. I'm suggesting that everything that happens to you is a springboard to becoming a better person. You do have a purpose and a path. That is true. You have a purpose and a path, and your intuition and your inner knowing and your guidance, it's going to carry you through. It's going to show you the path to the very best degree that it can, and that you will open up and hear it and listen and allow it. Resistance is futile. Resistance is futile, my friend, because, I could have walked in that hospital room and said, I don't like this picture. I am resisting this. You better save that kid. Well, there was no saving her. She'd been without a heartbeat for 30 minutes. Her brain was cooked. But because of hospital protocol, it took 6 days to really determine that. And as a result, my life was changed. Her life ended. Everyone around her was deeply affected. Even the doctors who worked on her told me later what a profound impact her death had on them. We all have a purpose and a path, and it may be that her purpose was affecting people through her death. When we can accept this, it's a path to greater self-care. Crisis is always our healer. Crisis is always our healer. And here's the final truth that I've really uncovered. My friend, you are far more powerful than you know. Far more. It takes a lifetime to understand the depth and the breadth of your deepest power. And I'm not talking about the power of manipulating or forcing people to do things. I'm not talking about the power that comes with great money and success. I'm talking about your ability to cope with the stressors in your life. I actually learned this while suspended upside down on a belay rope during the Outward Bound program in, 1987. And at that time, I was very young and I was learning how to be an adult. So I took the Outward Bound course and went across a skinny cable connected by 2 great big poles that were 20 feet in the air. And I fell off of it. But because I was hooked up, I was hanging upside down below this cable. And my job was to get back up there. And I just remembered saying, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. You have to come get me. I was panicking. And I started having a panic attack. The guy on the ground, who was just the model of calm, said, you can do it. Just take some deep breaths. Just calm down. You got time. This is cool. Don't worry about it. People do this all the time. And all of a sudden, this huge reserve of strength just welled up in me. And suddenly I was back up on top of the cable and shinnying my way across on my belly and getting to the other side. To this day, I don't know where it came from, but it taught me that I have reserves of strength I have never used and will seldom use. This is how mothers pick the car up off the baby, right? We are hugely powerful. And we only tap a tiny bit of that power because, hey, we're watching Netflix, or we're eating snacks, or we're complaining to our best friend, or we're just blowing it all off. But should we choose to engage, well, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's called you. You are your greatest resource. I hope this little chat about spiritual beliefs and how they can really be a great underpinning for your self-care has moved you forward today. If you want to give me some feedback, I'm always interested. Suzanne at SuzanneFalter.com. Thank you for listening. Before we wrap this week's show, I want to share with you a very beautiful, neat project about which I am completely excited. Very soon, the pre-order will be available for a book I've worked on for 7 years. That's right, 7 years. It's called Free-Spirited: How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. And it tells the whole story, much of which I've never shared publicly, about how Teal and I connected after her death. And I'm going to tell you, it's incredible. The book will be available in ebook and paperback, with that ebook on pre-order very soon, and it'll also be a serial podcast. So stay tuned right here to hear more coming soon. Free-Spirited. Before we go, it's that time again to just take a moment to rest, to relax, to come back to yourself. So uncross your arms and legs and make yourself comfortable. If you're driving, why not pull over and just take a moment to do this? Just give yourself a shake and roll your shoulders and rotate your head a little and just loosen up that tight grip your body has. It's time to let go. Inhale and exhale slowly. Inhale again. And exhale, dropping your shoulders. And one more deep breath. Now it's time to ask yourself that tricky question. What do I need right now? Go ahead, ask yourself. What do you need right now? Let the answer swim up and don't fight it, friend. Let it find you. What do you need right now? You don't have to figure out how you'll make it happen. You don't have to do anything more than just observe it and appreciate it. This is your heart and soul speaking to you, asking you for something that you can make happen. Take another deep breath. Open yourself up to the how of that beautiful need that just got planted in your ear. Because you also know how to make it happen. The question is, will you? Will you give yourself that little bit of respect, that bit of love and grace? Why not? Why not give yourself that gift right now? Inhaling in again and knowing you've got this. Whatever it takes, you've got this. You can do this. This need is here for you to fulfill. Thank you for being part of my self-care journey. I'm so happy to share it with you. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Self-Care for Extremely Busy Women. Hit the subscribe button wherever you found us, and you'll hear our next show as soon as it's posted. Everything you heard about today is on Suzanne's website, SuzanneFalter.com, SuzanneFalter.com. Just click on podcast to find the show notes page. Now, go ahead, take good care of yourself.